Good afternoon. A very warm welcome to the Nehru Memorial Museum and Library webinar today on the subject of Kuli to Cha Junogashti, interrogating the ideas of self and community by one of our junior fellows, Shri Rajkumar Thakur. We understand that the question of migration in the history of modern India is a very complex one. In the 19th century, because of the various requirements of the colonial economy, there were large-scale migrations encouraged and sponsored by the colonial power in India, both outside India to other countries and to different parts of India because of various requirements of local economy. In some cases, these requirements were necessitated by certain cash crops that the colonial economy needed for its own benefit. These cash crops consisted of tea plantation, coffee plantation, rubber plantation, sugarcane plantation. These were some of the most important cash crops that were promoted and encouraged by the colonial powers in different parts of the world. Since these were labor intensive crops, in many cases there was no supply, or rather insufficient supply of labor in the regions or the localities where these crops were promoted by the colonial powers. As a result, large scale migration of people from other parts either of India or of the world had to be compulsorily sort of sent to these regions in order to promote these cash crops. In the case of Assam, it was, I think, in the 1830s and 1840s that the tea plantations began to come up. And it was then that the British authorities felt that unless there is migration of people from outside Assam, or people from other parts of India, tea plantations will not be successful, because in the colonial discourse it was imagined that the local people are not willing to do the hard work that is required for a plantation economy. Consequently, large number of people were encouraged or sponsored to migrate from Bihar and sometimes from Bengal and sometimes from other parts of India also. Now, these people then continued to migrate for more than a century ever since, and they worked in the specialized plantations which had come up in various parts of Assam. Now, obviously several cultural and political fault lines opened as a result of this migration, as was the standard practice in the colonial times. Quite often these people who migrated were described as coolies or coolie labor because of the specific requirements of their migration, because of the legal status they were conferred, and because of the near bonded status, or rather the bonded status which was conferred upon them many times, on many occasions. As a result of all this complication, we see that a large number of these workers still continue to remain as outsiders in some sense or the other. And the present lecture is going to discuss the attempted transformation by one such community in Assam from the status of Kuli to Cha Janogashti, that is the community of tea laborers. So it is an attempt, albeit contested, by a community of people who migrated to Assam as part of tea plantation economy in the course of the last century or so, and who have attempted to migrate from this rather disparaging identity of coolie to a more dignified identity of tea plantation laborers. So without further delay now, I would like to invite Shri Rajkumar Thakur to proceed with his presentation.
Thank you, sir, for introducing the theme. Good afternoon to each and every one of you. I welcome you all for my talk, titled Coolie to Chajunagusti, Interrogating the Ideas of Self and Community. I would like to thank the Deputy Director Ravikant sir and the former Director Sakti Sinha sir for taking a keen interest in my theme and for providing me both the opportunity and insights to work on the theme of tea plantation workers of Assam. I'd also like to thank Dr. Narendra Shukla sir, Nisar sir, Iqbal sir, Hamanti ma'am, Rajneesh sir, and the librarian and staff at NMML for helping me out in numerous ways. Let me begin with some caveat. In the course of my presentation, I would be using several terms such as Coolie, Mazdoor, Tea Tribe, Assamese nationalism, sub-nationalism, regionalism, etc. These terms have been used not to convey any negative connotation about people and their sentiments. It has been used to capture the sensibilities and the politics located in certain time frame. The present paper is in continuity with my earlier presentation titled Coolie to Mazdoor. Earlier, I had deliberated on how the workers of the plantation industry were perceived by the new nation state and how in an independent India, coolies began to be designated as Mazdoors. In this paper, I shall demonstrate how the ideas of self and community have been conceptualized both by the workers and the civil society in Assam. The paper has been divided into three sections. The first is titled The Road to Literature and Documenting Culture. The second is called In Search for the Martyrs, and the third is called Self and Identity. In the year 1974, Prahlad Chandra Tasa, who was then a student leader, wrote an article titled Kuali Atorija, Fogs Fade Away, in a self-edited journal titled Hunamani. The journal was published as a souvenir by Assam Tea Garden Tribe Student Association. He wrote, in an era when men are celebrating their conquest of moon, in this era, the intercaste marriage between a tea worker's family and an Assamese family is seen with contempt. He went on to argue that now it is necessary to erase the clouds and fogs which exist between the Assamese population and the tea garden workers. Reminding the civil society of its duties, he warned, it is high time to do away with the clouds which separates both and build a greater unified Assamese society, or else, like the Bodos, he argues, a feeling of separatism would crop up amongst the tea garden workers sooner than expected. He gave several instances of humiliation associated with caste. Escaping the name of coolie, he argued, was not easy. If a worker's child qualified as a doctor, he was called a coolie doctor. A lawyer was designated as a coolie lawyer. A teacher was called a coolie teacher, and a minister, a coolie minister. The clouds of caste, in his words, had to go if Assam had to survive. Through his article, he hinted that for Assam to survive, the contours of its nationalism had to be broadened, which would mean accommodating, integrating, and weaving the workers both socially and culturally within the fold of Assamese Jati. Road to Literature and Documenting Culture. This leads us to the question, what were the constraints imposed by Assamese nationalism? In my previous presentation, I had discussed that in the 1940s and 50s, the ethnic Assamese raised the issues of victimization of the sons of the soil and introduced the binaries of indigenous and immigrants. In the late 1970s and the first half of 1980s, Assam saw the growth of regional sentiments, which is often referred to by social scientists as sub-nationalism or little nationalism. During the Assam movement, which was directed against the immigrant communities, primarily the Hindu Bengalis and Muslims of Bengali descent, many other migrant communities were also made to feel insecure, like the Marwadis, Biharis, Nepalis, and the workers employed in the tea industry. Amidst these sentiments, the workers were required to think and prove how they were different from other migrants. It also meant that the workers had to assert themselves to fit into the framework of Assamese nationalism, or else they were in the danger of being clubbed as outsiders or immigrants. The intelligentsia from within the community of the workers began to articulate on the ideas of self, identity, and community. The articulation by Prahlad Chandra Tasa should be seen within this frame. They sought answers to several questions. What was their history? What was to be their role in an independent nation? How should they be collectively referred to? What was to be their role in the society, culture, and polity of Assam? What were their contributions to the Indian freedom struggle? And how would they negotiate with the different versions of nationalism? It is in this context that the road to literature becomes significant. Since 1970s, the Assam Sahitya Sabha initiated a project of cultural accommodation and assimilation. It did so to broaden the definition of Assamese Jati. The fear that the ethnic Assamese would very soon be reduced into a minority and the Bengalis would overpower the cultural identity of Assamese was now and then pitched into the public sphere. Therefore, the ethnic Assamese intellectuals started a cultural project which involved identifying and accommodating the tea garden workers as Assamese. In this new articulation, the workers were seen as a valuable asset. They argued that without the participation and sweat of the workers, it was almost impossible for the tea industry to survive. Guided by these ideas, the Assam Sahitya Sabha began a project of the formation of the greater Assamese Jati. In this context, one should note that although in the official discourses the term Mazdoor gained acceptance, but in the decades after independence, the word Coolie survived in different forms. Most often, the Indian National Congress was accused by the political parties, namely the Assam Gana Parishad and later by Bharatiya Janata Party, for relying on the votes of Ali Coolie Bengali. In the popular perceptions, the Muslims, the tea garden workers, and the Bengali Hindus were seen as outsiders and as unequal partners in state formation. Thus, for the intelligentsia, which arose from amongst the tea garden workers, it was an attempt to break free from popular rhetoric and invent a new one so that they could fit into the regional politics as equals. This brings us to the following question. Who were the people who took the road to literature and wrote about the tea garden workers of Assam? Most of the writers were the descendants of the workers. They were first generation college graduates and were driven and motivated by the promises of the new nation state and sought representation for their community. Most of them were educated in Assamese medium schools and therefore they chose to write in Assamese. The names of Devram Tasa, Meghraj Karmakar, Santosh Kumar Topno, Narayan Ghatwar, Ganesh Chandra Kurmi, Prahlad Chandra Tasa, Sushil Kurmi, Dileswar Tanti, Prithvi Maji, Jiten Sundi, Bipin Chandra Mahato, Maniklal Mahanto, Dinanath Saura, Avinash Horo, Savan Hereng, Dileswar Tasa, Makhan Badu, Sanjay Kumar Tanti, Mridul Sahu, Samir Tanti, and Sananta Tanti are worth remembering for their commitments in depicting the diverse aspects of the world of the tea plantation workers of Assam. Through the use of literary forums, prose and poetry, books and articles, the intelligentsia started a dialogue with their past and present. These dialogues were an attempt by the educated to mould their past in a manner that it could help them to negotiate and broaden the definition of the Assamese identity in the present. For the tea and ex-tea garden workers of Assam, the psychological struggle to disentangle from a humiliating identity is a story not just of an aspiration for a more secular identity or an answer to the anxieties of being called an outsider. It is also a question of defining their identity under the frame of a cultural project of assimilation and broadening of the contours of nationalism. How should we understand the cultural project? The cultural project of the intelligentsia was embedded yet autonomous from the hegemonic literary bodies of Assam. The role of the literate men and women from within the community in shaping its consciousness has been enormous. Authors have not only made attempt to write history, they have simultaneously carried out anthropological works by bringing to light the cultural aspects of the life of the tea and ex-tea garden workers. These authors can rightly be classed as pioneers in their field. After all, it is through their writings that the Assamese public was introduced to the world of the tea garden workers of Assam. In the words of Suku Saura, the tea and ex-tea garden workers have been able to merge their culture with the culture of Assam. They have been working for the unity, progress and development of Assamese nationalism. Thus, through these contributions, he argues, they have earned a distinct position in the social life of Assamese nationalism. Since 1970s, the Assam Sahitya Sabha took keen interest in publishing books on the diverse aspects of the tea garden workers. To do so, it formed a tea garden subcommittee. This committee identified literate men and women from within the community of the tea garden workers and offered them a platform to write on the cultural world of the workers. As a result, several authors rose to occasion. One of the first authors to have written on the cultural world of the tea garden workers was Meghraj Karmakar. He had served as the president of the Dibrugarh District Sahitya Parishad. He was also the member of the working committee of the Assam Sahitya Sabha. He wrote 4 books, namely Haluk Bason, Kheli Meli, Panke Danti, and Doha Bhuja Durga Mata. From all his writings, one can argue that he wrote primarily on the theme of culture, which included themes such as religion, poetry on nature, and the portrayal of childhood. Narayan Ghatwar, a teacher and a member of the Cha Mazdoor Trade Union, wrote extensively on the tea garden workers. One of his books titled Banwar Sanskritik Jivanat Abhimukhi, a collection of articles on the cultural life of the tea garden people of Assam, was published in 1975 by Assam Sahitya Sabha. With the publication of this book, Narayan Ghatwar was introduced to a wider Assamese audience. The book was thematically arranged into 12 chapters, each elaborating on the festivals of the workers, folk dances, many facets of Jhumar, Tusu, Karam Puja. He introduced his book by stating that culture represents a community and it is the entry point through which the life of the community can be understood. He argued that there were among the workers as the workers had migrated, he brought to light the fact that workers had migrated from different geographical terrains of the subcontinent. But at the same time, he wrote that the mutual coexistence between these communities ensured that it gave birth to a collective cultural tradition. This collective cultural tradition, which is built across years, was to him a representative of the workers' culture. Despite the fact that the tea garden workers did not have a written script, he argued that Sadri has emerged as a language that has united the community. The existence of folk tales, dances and songs, according to him, has existed for years, which went on in shaping the collective cultural identity of the community. Susil Kurmi, a resident of Tejpur and a member of the working committee of Assam Sahitya Sabha, wrote 4 books, namely Cha Bagichar Okhomia, Sa Bagichar Jivan Aro Sanskriti, Tusu Gitor Maje Maje, and Sa Mazur Lokgit. In 1986, books in Assamese had been written on the worldview of the tea garden workers of Assam, namely Sa Bagisar Banua, Heuji Pator Maje Maje, Sa Bagisar Okhomia, Banuar Sanskritik Jibanot Abhimukhi, Sa Bagisar Majot Prasalit Hadu, and Koram Puja and Jhumur Geet. In the year 1978, the Assam Sahitya Sabha entrusted Devram Tasa with the responsibility of writing a book on the cultural aspects of the workers. The efforts of the author were presented to the world in the form of a book titled Sa Bagichar Puja Parv, published in 1981. In the book, he listed 26 festivals, giving detailed descriptions on each of them. A more detailed text emerged in 1993 when Ganesh Chandra Kurmi wrote a book titled Sa Janagostir Lok Sanskritik Ek Jhalak. He argued that the social and cultural life of the workers, their hopes and desires, achievements and failures, happiness and sorrow, the journey of their everyday life, ceremonies and rituals, and the proverbs and metaphors are embedded in the folk songs. He therefore promises of bringing this to light through his book. Through some of the Jhumar songs, he sheds light on how the workers perceive their migrational work culture in Assam. The discipline and alienation of work is also brought to surface by some of the poems. Freedom from the colonial rule and the transition and hopes associated with modernity also find some space in the song sung by the workers. He argues that these aspects of culture should be counted as one of the unwritten oral sources of constructing history of the tea garden workers of Assam. In a similar tradition, in 2013, a book titled Sa Janagostir Sanskriti, written by Dimbeswar Tasa, was published by the Assam Publication Board. The introduction of the book was written by Manik Saikia, an assistant professor of Assamese of Jagannath Purva College. He was also affiliated to the Assam Sahitya Sabha. Defining the word Sa Janagosti, he wrote, "They were migrants from different provinces of subcontinent who had migrated to Assam in search of livelihood, but in the process they assimilated with the air, water and land of the state. In due course, their internal differences gradually reduced, which in turn gave birth to Sa Janagosti." He also argued that the people who are now identified as Sa Janagosti are permanent residents of Assam. They are intrinsically part and parcel of the Assamese Jati, and Assam too is both their Janam Bhumi, that is motherland, as well as Karam Bhumi. Furthermore, he also goes on to argue that their assimilation is such that they do not have any other place to look back upon, and if Assam dies, they too shall die. The author Dimbeswar Tasa also gave a definition of the word Sa Janagosti. He defined Sa Janagosti as an ensemble of people who had migrated to Assam as workers in the tea states and were of different castes, subcastes and tribes. Introducing his book, he wrote that this book was a continuation in the genre of knowledge production about the workers to Assam. Culture to him was a dynamic phenomena. Like the flow of river, he argued that culture too is in continuous motion and it has underwent a tidal change. The advent of modernity has influenced the performance of rituals in numerous ways, but he still believes that despite the coming of modernity, the essence of the culture of their ancestors has been preserved through ceremonies and rituals. He wrote the book with the objective of explaining to the younger generation about the values that had existed amongst the communities in centuries and reminded the new generation about the struggles of their ancestors in shaping their culture. This leads us to the second section. What were the episodes and struggles that these writers emphasized upon? My second section, titled Locating the Martyrs and Participants in the National Movement, delves into this. The cultural project of the intelligentsia not only involved assimilation, but at the same time it involved negotiation with the visible tendencies of regionalism in Assam and simultaneously an attempt to fit into the framework of the dominant national culture. The process of recounting certain episodes of history as glorious, certain chapters to be marked and remembered, involves a construction of the national memory. This construction of the past meant that one needs more nationalism to be remembered in the memory of the nation. finding and locating workers who participated in the freedom struggle, celebrating their sacrifice and resistance, and fitting them into the national memory were seen by them as a marker of visibility. In the process, the participant workers were celebrated as martyrs. To do so, the literate men and women who have been writing in vernacular have been making attempts to bring out those chapters that they claim to have been neglected by professional historians. But one also needs to note that fitting into the dominant national memory or challenging the national memory is not independent from the politics of our times. The politics of the contemporary times evokes and reinvents the national memory. In the post-colonial India, a national memory was constructed that chose to glorify the role of freedom fighters. Textbooks were written and rewritten to remind the younger generations about the contributions of their ancestors and how they fought, sacrificed, and dreamt of an independent India. The art of remembering was also done through several other visible symbols, such as naming of roads and railways stations after the name of freedom fighters, giving pensions to those who had participated in the freedom struggle, awarding Tamrapatra to them, and several other measures of remembering them, such as freedom fighters, remembering the freedom fighters such under the scheme, namely the Swatantrata Sainik Samman Yojana. Elaborating on the role of the tea garden workers of Assam in the freedom struggle, Susil Kurmi argued that there are around 70 lakh tea and ex-tea garden workers in Assam, but no policy has been devised to rehabilitate the family of the tea garden workers who had participated in the freedom struggle. He provides a detailed list of the workers who had participated. From popular memory, he was able to recover the names of Maniram Kamar, Jairam Mahato, Gurucharan Gurmi, Gajadhar Gurmi, Dayaldas Panika, Ramcharan Gwala, Mangal Kurku, and Mangri Urang. Taking the case of Mangri Urang, who is popularly known as Malti Ma'am, he argues that in the non-cooperation movement of 1921, Mangri had been an active volunteer. She participated in the picketing of liquor shops and was vocal in her support for Gandhi, but within few days, she was killed by the police officials. Furthermore, he wrote that her participation in the non-cooperation movement and her subsequent death meant that she was the first woman martyr from Assam. But he laments that in 1979, when a list of Mukti Jujharu Anusandhan Samiti was published, her name did not appear in the list. Lamenting further, he wrote that till today, Mangri Urang does not feature in the list prepared either by the government of Assam or by the government of India. The story of Durgi Bhumij is another example of how the ideas of sacrifice and martyrdom are invoked in public memory. As per some accounts, Durgi worked as a volunteer and a secret agent for the Indian National Congress during the civil disobedience movement. It is believed that she was shot dead at the behest of the manager in one of the jungles through which she used to go to the manager's bungalow. In the popular memory, she is invoked as a patriot who died working as a volunteer for Congress. The use of the word martyr for workers who died resisting the oppression in tea plantation serves two purposes. First, it makes the community an equal participant in the annals of freedom struggle. And second, it helps them to negotiate with the chapters of history that so far has neglected these aspects of the political lives of the workers, thus making them a part of the dominant national culture. The life of Bankura Saura should be seen within these objectives made by the intelligentsia to broaden the annals of freedom struggle. Saura, who is often referred to as Sahid Bankura Saura, died participating in a tea garden strike in 1946. Bankura Saura was celebrated as a symbol of resistance. By invoking Saura as a martyr, the intelligentsia have been attempting to fit into the folklore of national movement. Thus one gets to see that by telling these stories, the intelligentsia attempts to preserve the workers from oblivion, to embrace nationalism, and to convey that workers should not be seen as ignorant beings, but as conscious political subjects. As far as the historicity of these martyrs are concerned, official records do not confirm to their existence. In some cases, there are a few references, like the case of Saura, but most often these deaths are shown as casualty of a disciplinary regime. It is therefore a challenging task for a student of history to weave them into the historical narrative and see them with the lens of patriotism and martyrdom. Despite their absence from official records, one cannot ignore the fact that people have tried to recover them from popular memory. Some writers have even gone to the extent of visiting the districts and villages from which the martyrs migrated to Assam. They have tried to weave a genealogy and establish them as men and women of flesh and blood. However, the challenges still remain. Firstly, most narratives of martyrdom have emerged out of the quest of the intelligentsia to locate themselves in the meta-events of history. Second, these stories are woven within the framework of national movement and not outside it. And third, more than objectivity, these inquiries are driven by emotion and a political quest for cultural visibility. For a student of history, it is therefore a complex domain. Whether it should be seen as politics in the garb of history or it should be seen as broadening the contours of cultural history, I am still in search of an answer. Despite these challenges, an inquiry into this domain of popular memory is important. How is popular memory shaped? How are figures invoked, discovered, and sometimes invented and laden with many meanings? These questions cannot be ignored. My third section, that is third and final section, it is called Self and Identity. While literature was deployed as a tool of broadening the idea of community and seeking equal space in Assamese nationalism, it was also utilized as a mechanism to engage with the notions of self and identity. During the colonial period, British officials consistently made efforts in knowing and understanding the population throughout India. From 1860s, the state began actively intervening in the affairs of the tea gardens. The people recruited for laboring in the tea gardens of Assam had to undergo a series of naming and renaming. The recruits were first identified according to their caste and habitations, and then they were renamed as emigrants. The emigrants were also referred to as landless poor, who were rehabilitated in the Assam as laborers in tea gardens. The naming done by the state had two consequences. First, immediately after the recruits landed in Assam and were shifted to tea gardens, they were named as immigrants. In the legal vocabulary, it meant that now the population would become outsiders who were contractually hired to labor in the tea gardens. At the same time, that is in 1874, Assam was constituted as an administrative province. Now the territory acquired a fixed identity of its own. The gradual penetration of constitutional politics gave a new shape to the political consciousness to the indigenous people of Assam. Amalendu Guha notes that there emerged a serious imbalance between the fast-growing modern sectors comprising plantations, coal mines, oil fields, and the associated infrastructure on the one hand, and the near stagnant traditional sector on the other. The imbalance was voiced by the Assamese middle class through several political and literary organizations. People began competing for job and control for business. The growth of nationalism in Assam took a new turn, for now emerged little nationalism that, in the words of social scientists, turned chauvinist. In the discourse around nationalism, several terms such as immigrants and immigration acquired a new meaning. Now, it was around this rhetoric that a constrained vocabulary of regional identity and an assertion was witnessed in Assam. Observing on the term immigration, a historian wrote that unfortunate though the term may be, a distinction between the immigrant and native communities has become a part of the ethno-political landscape of the region. The journey from being peasants, tribesmen, to becoming emigrants, immigrants, coolies reflects the organized violence by the state and by the civil society on the psyche of the workers. With independence, there was another wave of definition of the coolies. Several trade unions and political parties expressed their reservations on the usage of the term coolie. As a result, the government of India did away with the term coolie and replaced it with the term mazdoor. In the census of 1951, coolies were categorized as tea tribes. While the above identities were impositions from above, there was also a new wave of self-expression. In my previous presentation, I had already discussed how some of the students who were descendants of the tea garden workers came together to form a political organization. The organization, which was formed as Assam Chota Nagpuri Chhatra Sammelan, was in the year 1974 renamed as ARTSA. The renaming was done to take into cognizance the demands and aspirations of diverse communities from different regions who had migrated to Assam as coolies. While the earlier organization catered to the needs and aspirations of those who had migrated to Assam from Chota Nagpur, the later name was much broader. Moreover, in the census of 1951, the coolies were categorized as tea tribes and placed in the category of other backward class. The renaming of the student body as Assam Tea Tribe Students Association was also done with the intention that they would like to be referred as tea tribes, but at the same time, they wanted the tea tribes to be recognized as scheduled tribe. Thus, one can see that in this new wave of the articulation of the self, the naming of the community as coolies is narrated as humiliation of both the self and community. And even the new names that has emerged over the years have been subjected to critical scrutiny. In this context, the assertion of Kamal Kumar Tanti is significant. Kamal Kumar Tanti is a young Adivasi poet from Assam. In the year 2012, he was awarded the Sahitya Academy Yuva Puraskar for his collection of poetry titled Marangburu Amar Pita, Our Father Marangburu. In an interview published by the newspaper The Hindu, he told, I disagree with the naming of our community as tea tribe. He also asked the question, is there any community in this world named after a commodity? He further argues that it is true that our forefathers migrated or were brought from different parts of Adivasi-dominated areas of India. We have never seen the middle class Assamese consider us as Assamese. They call us Kuli Bengali. Just like the minority Muslim in Assam is called Mia or Bangladeshi. The main question is the identity, and in that the middle class Assamese never considered that we have a first identity Adivasi, and after that only we have a second identity Assamese. Tati's concern reflects a quest for autonomous self, but at the same time, this self should have a vibrant political connotation. The fact that he wants the community to be counted as Adivasi is in itself a step towards the formation of an autonomous identity. His question also hints that he aspires for a vibrant and secular name. The post-colonial politics of new identities, the negotiations and differences in the public sphere led to the formation of several other political fronts. The role of some organizations, namely All Adivasi Student Association of Assam, is worth discussing. ASA was formed on 2nd July 1996, charting a break from the hegemonic Tea Tribe Association. It sought to differentiate itself from Hindu customs and traditions. Rather than caste, it emphasized on the aspects of tribal traits within the community. It started uniting the youth of the tribal community from Chota Nagpur, Odisha and Bengal, settled in Assam, and appealed to them to identify as Adivasis. Both ASA and ARTSA are lodged in an ideological battle of representing the workers. While ARTSA argues that all the people who have been classified as tea tribes should be granted scheduled tribe status, ASA on the contrary argues that only those communities who were originally tribal should be granted scheduled tribe status. In addition to these organizations, there are several other cultural and social service organizations working within the community, namely Adivasi Seva Samiti, Adivasi Sahitya Sabha, including the Sahitya Sabhas formed by Khariyas, Mundas, Santhales, Uraos, Sauras, and Adivasi NGOs such as the Adivasi Women Association of Assam, All Assam Santali Students Union. Apart from the overground student bodies, there are several underground youth bodies, namely Adivasi Cobra Militants of Assam, Birsa Commando Force, Adivasi National Liberation of Assam, Adivasi People's Army, Adivasi Dragon Fighters. Most of the militant outfits were formed after the instances of violence against the settled tea garden population in Assam. These outfits were formed with the objective of fighting humiliation, seeking land, rehabilitating the displaced, and recognition of Adivasis as scheduled tribe. What is therefore crucial to the politics of naming of the self is that tea has remained integral to the categorization and classification of laborers. Some call them tea labor community, tea tribes, tea garden workers, cha shramik, cha mazdoor, etc. The idea of Sah Janagosti has therefore to be contextualized within this quest for autonomous and vibrant political body, which can set the tone, temper, and language of politics in Assam. In a Mahasabha held under the banner of Assam Sah Janagosti Jatiya Mahasabha, a renewed vigor in terms of identity, consciousness, and renaming of the community was witnessed. The three-day Mahasabha, held between 27 to 29th March 2015, focused on the questions of Jati and the politics of the definition of self. The Mahasabha was formed on 6th April 2003 at Sibsagar. The choice of the place Sibsagar has a historical importance. Sibsagar has been in the epicenter of Ahom rule, and Ahoms and the upper caste Assamese have so far shaped the contours of Assamese nationalism. Thus, holding a Cha Janagosti Jatiya Mahasabha at Sibsagar meant that the idea of Brihottar Akhamiya Jati, that is greater Assamese nation, had to be floated from this epicenter of power and cultural hegemony. The Mahasabha was formed as alternative organization to unite and assimilate all the workers and ex-tea garden workers and put forward the claim of Brihottar Akhamiya Jati. In the formative year, 7 jatis participated. By 2006, it increased to 23, and in 2015, it saw the participation of 76 jatis. On 26 November 2011, the Assam Cha Janagosti Jatiya Mahasabha adopted its constitution with the following objectives of empowering the community, both culturally and politically, and to work for the integration and formation of the greater Assamese Jati. The conference that was held in 2015 began with the following call: Mati Thakle Jati Thakbe, nationality thrives on land. As per the estimates provided by the president of Assam Cha Janagosti, more than 90% of the people employed in tea gardens were landless. The members of the Cha Janagosti therefore raised the question of land, for they feared that without land their identity would be threatened. The efforts of the members of Cha Janagosti to rename the community as Sah Janagosti, which can be loosely translated as tea community, has been coined as an umbrella term which includes all the jatis and janajatis who were and are engaged in the tea gardens as workforce. Cha Janagosti, in their words, neutralizes the burden with the already existing names such as Bohira Gotok, Kuli, Tea Tribe. It helps them to demonstrate their numerical strength and exhibit themselves as a highly organized and united cultural community whose objective is to be recognized as Adivasi. In the Mahasabha that was held, there were 76 castes and tribes with their unique flags and cultural symbols. An exhibition displaying the art and craft, occupation, dress, and different dance forms was also held. The exhibition displayed the diversity and marked a cultural assertion in terms of celebrating the difference of identity in terms of customs, taste, and occupation. By celebrating their difference, they intended to assert their cultural identity, using it as a tool to negotiate in the public sphere and strengthen their case for scheduled tribe in the legal domain. It was also a way of owning up Assamese nationalism and building up the thesis that, like the Ahoms, the workers too have built Assam with their blood and sweat. One significant question on which the members of Sah Janogosti univocally spoke was over the question of what constitutes to be an Assamese or who are an Assamese. Answering to the above question, Teras Gwala, the president of the Sabha, said, "We have toiled in the land for more than 100 years. We have turned the jungles and unproductive spaces into a beautiful garden. We have nurtured this land with our sweat and blood. The air and water of this land carries our fragrance. Nobody has the right to alienate us. We are and we will continue to be Assamese." Thus, the concept of self-ownership becomes vital to the question of living with dignity in the territory they have toiled. By asserting that the laboring communities have made and built the territory, they make strong claims of owning the state as equal partners. The call for a Brihatar Asamiya Jati is invoked with the objectives of displaying patriotism and loyalty to the territory. Teras Gwala also went on to highlight the failures of the Indian National Congress in fulfilling the demands of land and granting scheduled tribe status to the community. In 2016, Gwala was chosen as a candidate by BJP to represent Duliajan constituency. His call for Brihatar Asamiya Jati found takers and he won in 2016, defeating the Congress representative Dhrubajyoti Gogoi by around 70,000 votes. Thus, one can argue that naming of the laborers has undergone significant mutation from the colonial to the post-colonial times. The naming of the workers has graduated from being defined as recruit, immigrant and coolie to being called Mazdoor, Cha Mazdoor, Banua to the new categories such as T tribes, Sah Janogosti and Adivasis. In this context of articulation of self and community, the year 2001 saw a significant development. In 2001, a book was published by the Assam Sahitya Sabha. The book was titled Okhomar Sah Janogosti, that is Tea Community of Assam. The book was written by Prahlad Chandra Tasa. If we compare his earlier article written in 1974 with the book written in 2001, one not only gets to see a transition in the tone, but also a more confident appeal to embrace the Assamese nationalism. The journey of Prahlad Chandra Tasa is worth discussing. From being a student leader and an activist, he worked as a teacher and later worked in the education department of Assam. He wrote several books and articles on the world of the plantation workers and also served as a general secretary and vice president of the Assam Sahitya Sabha. In 2016, he was awarded Padma Shri for his contributions to in the field of literature and education. The title of the book should be seen as a major break in terms of renaming of the self of the coolies. By calling them Sah Janogosti, the intelligentsia wishes to convey that workers too have an autonomous identity. It should be seen as an effort to exhibit numerical strength, display their political vibrancy, and fit into the framework of the greater Assamese nation, not as minority, but as equal partners. But embracing the nation is not without conditions and constraint. Most tea garden workers choose Assamese as lingua franca, despite the fact that an attempt is being made to assert for Sadri. They made Bihu, Gamusa, and Japi as a part of their identity. Despite the claim of ownership, of showing utility to the territory, of displaying patriotism and locating and embracing martyrs, their assimilation and accommodation within the framework of Assamese nationalism remains contested. There are two diametrically opposite worlds. On the one hand, we have the world where there is the rhetoric of assimilation, and on the other, we have a world where we have the stories of exclusion. Time and again, the idea that workers belong to the tea gardens and not outside its perimeter, the idea that ethnic Assamese would continue to patronize them, and the idea that workers will have to function within the frame of Assamese nationalism and not outside it is continuously on display. One such example was visible on 24th November 2007 when the youths represented by the All Adivasi Students Association of Assam came to Guwahati to press for their recognition as scheduled tribe. They faced severe backlash from the people in Guwahati. Shame and humiliation was on display on the streets of Guwahati. A young Adivasi girl was force stripped, beaten, and she had to run for life. Several volunteers of Adivasi Association were also chased and beaten. Very recently, when an ethnic Assamese doctor employed in a tea garden was killed by the workers for they accused him as a man who failed in delivering his duties, there was again a severe backlash on the community. Not just the civil society, even the social media platforms exhibited its bias towards the workers. Some called them pythons, that is Ajgar, some labeled them junglis, others were comfortable calling them as uncivilized, barbaric. Very recently, during the much debated draft of National Register of Citizens, many tea and XT garden workers had to bear the brunt of bureaucratic anomalies to an extent that many await for their recognition as citizens. Thus, one can argue that even the idea of Brihattar Akhamiya Jati has its limits. For it not only lacks elasticity, it sees the workers not as equals but as junior partners. Thank you.